Of a critical mass here to begin. So let me share a screen with you. So today we are talking about a topic that is absolutely near and dear to my heart, which is Women's Day. And I realize that typically the conversations around Women's Day, they move around workplace policies, gender parity, gender balance, what helps women in the workplace. And that's usually what the conversations are about. And I do think those are very important conversations, basic level conversations that we need to be having. But I believe that there is a more important conversation, and I will say, yes, more important conversation that needs to be had, and that is with the women within themselves. And that conversation is not about gender balance in the workplace. That conversation is really about that if we unconsciously solve for gender balance in a world where success is defined by patriarchal values, we will never yield to a balanced woman. And so I really love the theme of this year, which is choose the challenge. So that's the hashtag for this year's Women's Day. And I really am going to ask all of you, men, women, whoever is here, to choose to challenge some of these ideas that we've just sort of internalized without really questioning it. I've worked with women, in the leadership positions. I've worked with mothers in the past. I myself have gone through some of these things that I'm going to be sharing with you. And I will try to bring in all of those stories as we move along. So let me just set the agenda for today. And the agenda is really going to be within the frame of the heroine's journey. And I'll tell you what that is. And talking about the barriers and the unrealistic expectations. These are the things we need to start challenging, but the barriers internally as well as externally, some of our unrealistic expectations of ourselves, where did they come from? And why are we just so sort of resigned to the idea that this is just how it's always going to be? I'm also going to talk about women's mental health because that is a real issue, a real issue, and working women and working mothers' mental health during COVID. And then towards the end, I will talk about journeying back towards this place of wholeness. All of this is going to make a little bit more sense as I share with you the frame of this talk. You know, this topic is such an emotional topic for me because I have been on this journey and I continue to be on this journey. And so what is this journey that I'm talking about, the heroine's journey? And so in 1949, Joseph Campbell, and many of you guys might have heard of him, he actually presented a model of the mythological journey, the psychospiritual journey of the hero. You know, the hero who gets a call to adventure, then he goes and, has his, fights the dragon, goes through his journey, gets to the castle, saves the day, brings back, and lives happily ever after. And that's kind of the hero journey. And you will see it in movies, you will see it in books. Writers know about it, where there's a beginning, the struggle, the fight, the sort of integration, and then going back home. So that's the hero's journey. And Maureen Murdoch wrote a book called The Heroine's Journey, which is also based, she was a student of Joseph Campbell. And she talked about the heroine's journey. And when I read about this, and when I actually heard about this, I really felt like this is it. This is what we are all struggling with. And so it is a fact that in many families, cultures, religions, when women are born, when a female is born, they are considered second rate. The female child is seen as inferior. And so the indoctrination begins that there is something actually wrong with the woman. And so this is where the split starts to happen, where the woman is actually really wanting to identify and prove herself in this world, which is a male-dominated world, and a world of patriarchy. And so whether it's third world countries or superpowers that we're talking about, the issues are all the same. They just present themselves in a different way. Oppression is oppression, and girls are struggling with, am I good enough? Am I enough? Actually, am I enough in what? Am I enough in this world, which is choosing to judge me by these standards that are not necessarily set by women, but actually women who might have internalized those patriarchal values. So this is the journey I'm going to take you through. And this is what most of our struggle actually is. And I would like to say that this is not, for me, a man versus woman issue. Men are struggling with these patriarchal values just as much as women are. They are bound by patriarchal values just as much as women are. And yeah, of course, women are, have been for hundreds of years within that position of oppression, but men also are struggling. So I don't want to position this as girl power and women unite. This is really about men and women together fighting against these patriarchal values that hold us all back and that don't allow us to step into our full power, because we are sort of holding ourselves up to these standards that actually are quite toxic. And so the heroine's journey, unlike the hero's journey, yes, it does include these external battles, but her biggest battle is really going to be getting to the core of who she is and the parts of her that she splits off early on in life to make it in the man's world, and to find, where she suits up in her armor. And really, I mean, if you think of Mulan, right, she suits up and dresses up like a man to sort of step into that man's world, but in the end realizes that she is not that. She is actually a woman. And there's going to be women and men that are going, masculine and feminine energies that she's going to have to access, and they both exist inside of us. So I'll take you through all of this journey where she identifies with the masculine, she gathers her allies, then there's a road of trials, then there is success. Then there's this feeling of this spiritual aridity, this death, that something is missing, I'm estranged, my spirit is no longer with me. Then there's a descent, and this is the dark night. Then we move up to this yearning to reconnect to the feminine, and I think we're sort of in this space right now between 7 and 8, and the healing of the mother-daughter split. I'll talk to you guys about what that is. The healing of the wounded masculine, which is also referred to as toxic masculinity, and then integrating the feminine and masculine. So that's the journey we will take today. And as I go through this talk today, I don't want you to be like, what's masculine, what's feminine, that's not masculine, I'm talking about this language, and maybe like in 100 years from now, like maybe the language will be a little bit different. It won't be referred to as feminine, masculine, but these are the words. And until there's a better vocabulary for it, I'm gonna use that. But you can call it yin or yang, estrogen and testosterone. You can call it, call it whatever you want. That doesn't seem triggering to you, but these are the different forces inside of us. Every man and every woman has these forces, okay? There is a logical, confident, focused, competitive, single task oriented, ambitious, clear, assertive, goal driven. This would be the testosterone, the yin of your energies. Every woman has these energies. Now, every woman also has this intuitive, generous, nurturing, creative, collaborative, caring and receptive and grateful part to her. Now, these two energies have their gifts. They all have their gifts, and we all have access to these gifts. However, what society actually does is it compartmentalizes them and actually defines men and women in these narrowly defined, well, this is what it means to be a man, and this is what it means to be a woman. And that's where we've gone wrong. If you only are this is what patriarchal values will do, that a woman should be this and a man should be that. And it's just not that. We all have access to this inside of us. And what we are not doing is that we are actually not accessing the wholeness of who we are. And when we start to disconnect or disassociate from those opposite energies inside of us, that's where dis-ease, disease will come from. So, and that's where stress is coming from. And I think a lot of men and women are feeling that. Men who are absolutely in that world of toxic masculinity, who don't have access to their intuition, who don't have access to their creativity, that can't open up and be receptive, well, they are suffering too. But women who are actually leaning too far in to fit into the man's world by taking on the logic and taking on the focus and not actually being open and connected to their physical bodies, their intuition, their nurturing abilities, their creative abilities. And by the way, I mean these in the broadest sense, okay? When I say nurturing, it's not a mother nurturing a child, it's nurturing yourself, nurturing the people around you, nurturing the companies that you work for, like bringing that energy into that space. That's what I'm talking about. So think broadly about this. So I'm going to be using masculine and feminine, but in your head, you can use whatever actually suits you. And I'm going to be using that throughout the talk today. And so the first thing is I'm going to take you through these first 3 steps. So this heroine's journey begins basically at birth. And this is where the indoctrination begins, that you are second rate. And it may not be from the parents, but it's coming from all sorts of messages. And now with social media and technology, these messages are super, super loud. Okay, so the battle begins where she's now going to identify with the masculine, identify with the logic and the confidence and all of the things that I just mentioned, being, assertive and goal-driven and making something of herself and doing productive things. She starts to identify with that. And I would like to say that women are born with very conflicting messages. Women should be pretty and polite, but don't be too aggressive. And, looks aren't everything, but oh, wait, she doesn't actually really care about what she looks like. Or, you know what, she really doesn't take care of her house very much, but, she is neglecting her family because of her work. I mean, all these messages, she's too fat, but not fat in all the right places. She's too thin, but not thin, and thin in all the wrong places. These messages are given, and she's too career driven. She's too focused on her work and neglecting all the things around her. And so basically you're getting messages from all over that whatever you're doing is not right. So we actually don't get a very clear script. Women, especially today, are not getting a very clear script. Maybe a couple 100 years ago, at least the script was clear. We might have had some issues with that script, but now it's like, well, what am I supposed to be exactly? Am I supposed to be working? Am I supposed to be the one taking care of the kids? Am I still supposed to be the one blamed if something goes wrong with the kids or the house? Because it's still that. And so layer upon layer of years upon years, centuries upon centuries of messages are starting to pile up. And these messages are that you need to be everything, or you are not enough, or you are not good enough in whatever it is that you're doing because you're trying to do everything. And so this is where a lot of these unrealistic expectations start to get internalized as well. There's all these relationship goals and marriage and romance. Like, you should do that. A woman should do that. Of course, you should be an A+ parent. You should be the daughter of the year, the daughter-in-law of the year. You should be the best friend that, everyone should ever have. You should have an Instagram lifestyle or a social media lifestyle. And if you don't, then maybe your life is lacking because you're just not as interesting or you're not as valuable. You should look a certain way, all these celebrities promoting that this is what 50 looks like and this is what 60 looks like. These are messages that we're getting that, I need to look like that because that is what is admired and that is what is, plastered around and saying this is who you should be and this is what 50 and 60 and 70 looks like. Of course, we should also be working on our careers, and we should be Forbes under 30, 40, 50, and on and on. So this constant struggle to you still have to do something productive in the world. Like, being a parent is not enough, and being the daughter is not enough. Being the wife is not enough. You still have to do something meaningful in this world because that is not meaningful. And of course, you should be of service to your community. And while you do that, make sure that your home has like this Martha Stewart quality. I mean, no, Martha Stewart really is gifted. And so I'm not hating on Martha Stewart, really quite inspiring. But while you do all of that, make sure you do this too. So this is the messages that we are internalizing, and our daughters are internalizing, and those are being communicated to us. And I would like to say something. When it comes to patriarchal values and these messages, women are the biggest culprits here. Like, most of the messages that we will get are not necessarily communicated and handed down from father to daughter. They actually are handed down from mother to daughter, that this is what it means, or a woman to woman, and this is what it means. We might pat each other on the back as women and say, well, you know, girl power, but we sort of slide in these kinds of expectations unconsciously, not knowing that we are actually skewing people's ideas of what it might be to be a woman. And you could be all of these things if you wanted that, if that's what you wanted. You could be one of those things if that's what you wanted. But the point is that we are identifying with patriarchal values rather than operating from the inside out. And so these are the messages early on, pre 7 years old, we start to get some of these messages. Okay, be this, be that, do that, do that. Okay. Then, of course, there's the road of trials. As our ego development starts to happen, we are in school, we are in college, we are in our careers, we come up against all sorts of barriers and battles, right? This is our road of trials. Of course, there's these patriarchal values and the traditional female roles that we are up against. There's also other women's judgment. Oh God, there is nobody that judges women more than other women. It is a fact. Oh, what? You don't breastfeed? Oh, what? You don't feed your children organic food? Oh, what? You don't know how to cook? Oh, you don't work? Like, these are the things we say to each other. So this really is the culture. And I've seen it. I'm a mother of 4 children, and I know the judgment that I've experienced as someone who was working and someone who was, you know, going to school during, while I was giving birth and so I know that. And so there's always this, like, there's something wrong with you. Like, you are not doing this part of the formula here. You can't just pick one. You have to do all of it. And of course, there's this glass ceiling, the broken rung. We just can't get above it, right? So this pushing up against this, the ceiling, these, you know, trying to climb up a ladder that we might not even have placed up there. Maybe it was, you know, messages that we sort of identified with really early on in life. And then we put this ladder up and we started climbing, and we really didn't think about, wait, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Is it to please my father? Is it to find a way to just sort of not be like my mother? Because a lot of women also do that. They overcompensate because they don't want to turn out like their mother, who didn't work, who didn't earn a living, who was dependent on their father. And so, well, let me just find a way to be the opposite of that. And so they take all of their life force and present it in the compensating for their mother. But that actually isn't, whether you're like your mother or you're compensating to be not like your mother, you're still in the grips of that complex, and you're still in the, you know, grips of the mother complex. So there's all this happening, right? And then we climb all sorts of ladders, actually. The corporate ladder, we achieve our prestige, our position, our financial equity. We feel powerful in this world, but while that there's also this caregiver that happens. There's the second shift that we have to deal with, all this invisible work that no one actually talks about. And then there's a shortage of mentors. Who's going to mentor the woman? Is it going to be other women? Is it going to be men? Women don't want to do that, or men don't want, like, there's always a shortage of mentors that will actually take a woman under their wing, whatever they decide to do, whether it's them being at home or whether it's them trying to be a working mother or a working woman, whichever way, the shortage of mentors is very obvious. All the while, the road of trials also has internal a lot of internal barriers, and I will talk about that and the implications of that on our mental health. Obviously, there's the comparisons with other women, there's perfectionism, so much guilt and shame, constantly feeling guilty and ashamed. You know, there's so many panels that came up for Women's Day, and I saw that, you know, how to have work-life balance. I mean, there's pressure, like I have to be balanced, 50% this, 50% that, like there's constant pressure and constant need to seek approval, constant need to people please, because that's what our indoctrination is, that you please people, you are polite, you are giving, you are generous, you are all of these things, but oh wait, not for yourself. There's all sorts of insecurities. Am I good enough? You know, I'm working as much as he is, but I'm not getting paid the same as him. Like, is it because I'm not worthy of it? There's all sorts of questions that start to show up. And obviously, self-compassion is not something that is taught to girls or to boys, but I'm speaking about girls here, to women. And then self-care is not a priority. So as they start to move through the road of trials, as they start to, you know, conquer some of these battles or be up against some of these battles, you know, they actually have to carry a lot of the mental and emotional load of so many of the different tasks as well. And they really, I mean, this is really, when we talk about the heroine's quest, like she has to do a lot. And there is, I did consider, well, should I put this PowerPoint as a men versus women? Like, this is what it looks like in the man's world. This is what it looks like in the women's world. But I'm just speaking here about the women. And there is a lot of invisible mental workload when it comes to just managing household chores and childcare, tracking, planning, doctor's appointments, play dates, all of that is really decision-making, assigning, monitoring, taking care of, you know, just even the different, if you have a nanny, making sure that you're communicating with the nanny, all of that actually falls within the realm of the woman. So much self-doubt and inadequacy is experienced because, like, how can one person do it all, right? There's a mental workload, mental load, as well as the emotional load. You also have to do the motivating and reassuring and validating and comforting and disciplining and empathizing with the children. This is, you know, for working women or mothers in general, they offer the same amount of emotional support to their spouses, to their coworkers, regardless of how much stress they're suffering. And this is a researched fact. So yes, there's the paid work, but look at everything else that we have to carry on top of that. And the unpaid work is way more for women than it is for men when it comes to just running a household and then bringing up a family. And I'm not talking about working women, I'm just talking about women in general. We have to spend double the time on unpaid work a day than men do. And that really played out during COVID for sure. And so we play the role of many, 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 many people. So, and then we do it all. We really, really do it all. And we find success and whatever success looks like. But that comes at a really big cost. And, you know, one day you wake up and you're like, wait a minute, I'm not happy. And it becomes like this joyless ambition, whether you are a woman at home raising children and just making sure that their homework is done and the food is perfect and the house is perfect and the socializing calendar is perfect. Like, whether you're working on that or whether you're working as a working mother or whether you're working as a single woman, I think there comes a point where all of these values that we sort of internalize just start to pull their weight, and it just becomes way too heavy. She's, you know, this is a woman who's achieved everything she set out to do, but it's come at a great sacrifice to her soul. Her relationship with her inner world becomes estranged. We're like disconnected to our bodies. Like, we're all living up here most day, every day. Even the mothering is happening from up here. Did you do this? Did you do that? Did you do that? Because we have to do it all alone. Like, never before in history has a woman had to do all of it alone. There's always been a village. There's been aunts and grandmothers and aunties and cousins and, it was always that, right? We were like small communities and we all raised each other's kids. But now all of that is placed on the woman's back. And at some point that really starts to weigh her down. And somewhere inside, the woman knows that something is really missing from her life. She feels stretched thin, and she looks in the mirror and she says, who is this person? And why is she doing all of this? And what is all this for? And this could actually happen where, things like an ending of a relationship which you deeply, deeply, deeply invested in, graduation of your children, or the growing up of your children where they start to become independent and they no longer need you. All of a sudden, all that energy that you invested in your kids, or you get, passed by for that promotion, or you have to step down from your managerial or in a senior position because you're about to have kids, or it's because you got diagnosed with a physical illness. Something happens at this time in a woman's life. And it could be a mental illness, not just a physical illness. And that's where the descent begins and the initiation begins. And really there's a sadness, a grief, a feeling that is so confusing and so undirected. You don't know how you got here. What happened? Like, well, how did I get here? How did I lose myself? How did I lose myself in all the things and all the activities that I was doing that I actually don't know who I am? And so if I ask women, who are you? Oh, I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm a friend. They'll label all of their roles, but who are you? And they're like, I actually don't know what that means. Go back to before you were all those roles. Who were you at that time? That is the essence of you. And then we identify with all of these different personas. And then when the personas start to get challenged and the realities start to crumble, there's almost like there's nothing left. And there's a huge sense of betrayal. Like I feel betrayed, and so it really feels like, well, who did the betraying? Was it the patriarchal culture? Was it the men? Was it the women? Was it the mothers? Was it us who just said, okay, sure, I'll do it? So there is a lot of sadness and grief that happens. And the descent, actually, the dark night of the soul, it usually happens, it'll happen in, early 30s, mid 30s, late 30s sometimes. But usually there's a moment of like a shock that happens to the system. And all of a sudden, all those parts that you ignored or devalued, repressed, suppressed, pushed aside, all the feelings that you swallowed, they start to surface in that dark night. And usually if you can hold that tension and not find a way to just sort of move yourself out of that place, or go get another job, or have another kid, or get a divorce and get another marriage. Like, usually we try to solve the problem by doing what we had done throughout our journey, but then we take that journey again. So we almost loop back up from the separation to the ephemerate and we start all over again. But if we can hold that, which is where we are right now, we're actually saying, challenge this. This is not okay. We cannot keep denying parts of ourselves. This is where, this is where I think we can make sense of the mental health issues that are arising in women. This is how we can, if we were to say, what is the depression asking of us? What is the anxiety asking of us? Rather than quickly trying to solve the problem, rather than quickly trying to medicate it or get over it or get on with it, what if we just sat with it and saying, what are you asking of me? And, and the numbers are actually quite obvious that we are just being squeezed from each end, and we are sort of dismembered and dissociated from parts of ourselves that are asking for a life again. We feel sort of deadened inside because we are not giving life to certain parts of our life. And so let's talk about women's mental health, right? Women's mental health, they're twice as likely to have an anxiety disorder or fall into depression than men. Now, I know that a lot of men will actually not report that, But in any case, there's just a lot of anxiety and depression that women are experiencing. They're also likely to have multiple psychiatric disorders, so comorbid. They could have eating disorders and depression and anxiety. And, so it could actually be with a lot of different disorders, addictions, eating disorders, self-harm, anxiety, depression, all of these things can, two of them can show up. It's not just one. 40 to 59 usually have the highest rate of depression based off of any group on age and gender. So 1 in 8 women that are in the ages of 40 to 59. And this to me is absolutely indicative of that dark night, that wait a minute, I've gotten to the midway point of my life and I actually don't know who I have been in service of. It is definitely not in the service of my spirit or in the service of my body or in the service of my mental health. It's always been in service of everyone else, or to get this sort of pat on the back from the exterior world, men and women combined. And so I can see why that would actually be the highest group out of all the people that exist when it comes to depression. Anxiety disorders occur earlier in women than in men. A lot of these college-aged, high school-aged girls will experience this. And 10% of pregnant women and 13% of those women who have just given birth experience a mental disorder. And primarily that is depression. And depression tends to show up in women as sadness, worthlessness, and guilt versus other ways that it shows up in men. And they're more likely to become more depressed because they just don't have any internal resources, or they haven't built their tribe, or they don't actually have external allies either that are going to pick them up. They usually have their allies and come on, man, just get on with it. Buck up, let's, you're going to make it through, stay on the positive side. These are the messages they're getting. So they're going to feel more depressed in times of a stressful event because they literally are running on empty. So when that stressor hits, that's going to get a whole lot worse. So for working women, the numbers don't look so good either. 1 in 3 guys, look around you, working women and men, 1 in 3 will experience severe anxiety by comparing their success to others. 1 in 4 will experience unmanageable levels of stress and anxiety. They will say they're too busy to even think about their mental health, despite them having consistent symptoms. So many of them actually don't even know that this is what anxiety is because they've lived with it for so long. And you know what? I don't have time for this. I don't have time to be depressed. I don't have time to be anxious. So they will take the medication. They will just get on with it, and they will keep denying those parts. 1 in 5 report having depression or anxiety. They don't see a medical professional. They feel they have higher earning capacity, but the more unmanageable their mental health issues become, they are less likely to actually engage in that. They feel they have it, but they're not going to actually be able to manage the mental health that might come with that. 3 in 10 won't open up to others about their mental health struggles due to fear, judgment, and they feel they don't have the right to be depressed due to their success or their intelligence. So women are more likely to get depressed at work because of the lack of appreciation or appropriate rewards for their efforts. They feel depressed, working women, usually because it's interfering with their family life, because it is a really big part of a woman. It's just who we are. We're collaborative, we are family, we want family, friends, we want to be relational. And so that part of us, when we deny that, it actually is a huge part of us that we are denying. And then many of them actually say that their mental health difficulties are the greatest barriers to their workplace success. Now, working women during COVID, this was really, really interesting research that came from all different sources. A lot more women experienced anxiety and depression. A lot more women had depressed mood when it comes to increasing depression. So they were already depressed, but then they had a lot more depression. Working mothers were 45% more likely to have suffered from a mental health issue. I'm a working mother. We had, homeschooling, and I can tell you that really it brought me to my knees. And I have support at home. And so it really, really pushed women to the edge. And I think there was one statistic where 72% of mothers had to work fewer hours because of childcare issues. And 65% of the mothers said that they had to quit their job because they just didn't have childcare. So this is where the discrepancies are happening. This is where the issues are, that the whole workload is on the woman and there is not a lot of support for her. So the numbers speak for themselves that, we are on this quest and we really are fighting a fight, and it just feels like an uphill battle all the time because people are not naming the issues, but we are also not speaking up about it because we just don't have time for it. I just got to get on with it. So this is where choose to challenge some of these policies, choose to challenge some of these ideas that you have sort of signed on and signed up for. And so let me just say the last two and then we'll move on to the next slide. Anxiety levels have grown 52% for women versus men. And then more than 1 in 4 women, working mothers, are contemplating downshifting their careers or just leaving the workforce completely. I don't know for how long, but this is like, it's like they're fed up. Like, I can't do this anymore. Like, there's just too much on my plate. So think about that. 1 in 3 guys, 1 in 4 women, and 1 in 3 working mothers. That's a really high number. So as we are trying to go for gender parity and, these policies, we have to keep in mind some of these realities for women, and maybe challenge. I would say men should challenge that. Why is it that the workload falls on the mother? Why is it that it's not falling on the father also? And so these are the things that we've just sort of do without question. So the next part of my talk is going to be really about the journey back home. So now that we're in this dark period, we're in it right now, women are struggling. Yeah, sure, there's some of us that are like, oh, okay, we're doing great and girl power, but inside, like, women are suffering, and they are, they might actually be putting on even a facade of success and accomplishment, and look at, I made it in a man's world. And it's like, well, like, how are you feeling inside? And what cost has it come to you at, for mental health, physical health, burnout? And so this kind of yearning that we are all experiencing, and I think COVID really brought that to the surface for many of us, this yearning to connect and heal this split. And when I talk about the mother-daughter split, I'm not talking about like literally the mother. It's actually the feminine inside of us. And you may choose to actually heal your mother relationship, but it actually is doing the simple task of connecting to your feminine nature. She might not receive, you might not receive any glory for these tasks. And some people might even say, well, what is wrong with her? She just took a sabbatical and now she just wants to garden all day long. And she took a sabbatical and she just wants to paint all day. Or now, she's still working, but all of a sudden she's redoing her house. This is reconnecting again to your feminine. So whatever that might look like. And I will also say that part of the journey back home is healing the wounded masculine, which is the toxic masculine part of us. The parts where we have said we need to be tough and we can't ask for help, and no, we've got to do it all and we've got to do it on our own. And we have got to look a certain way while we do it. And we've got to keep a smile on our face. These are all messages of toxic masculinity that you just, keep on keeping on. And that just doesn't work. Like, what is my body asking asking of me? What is my soul asking of me? These are conversations of the feminine. And so we do need to heal that masculine parts of us, because the masculine nature is important. It is. If you go back to the Mulan, right? She came back and she fought that fight, but she didn't have to have her hair in a bun and, wear what the men wear. She came and she showed up as a woman. And so the masculine forces, the energy inside of us is going to support your dreams and your hopes, and it will give you the energy and the goal and the achievement oriented kind of energy that you're going to need to have all of those images and dreams and hopes come to fruition. It will help you speak up for your truth and challenge authority. That is the masculine forces. We do need that, but we also need to, again, embrace the other parts of us, our body, our heart, our soul, our relationships, our feelings, our creative forces, our intuition. Everything that is below our neck down is what we need to be connecting with. And so this is the journey back home, really, and home being wholeness. So yes, there are some fundamental realities, some table stakes that we need to be thinking about. And the basics are gender parity and gender equality. And I do believe that that is going to be very important. And we need to allow for flexible work, inclusive workplaces, culture of meritocracy that challenges unconscious biases. Yeah, we need all of this. We definitely need all of this. And we need men and women to challenge some of these ideas that are actually causing us to be split off from our true nature. And so, and feeling protective of yourself in the same way that you would protect those that you love, feeling that kind of protective energy rise up inside of you. And so this is the journey sort of back home, right? And this is going to require that you do make time for some inner work, some reflective practice. It doesn't take much then to just be with yourself, to actually hear the voice. We actually are quite attuned as women to our bodies. Our bodies do all sorts of things all the time, and we actually have a lot more connection. We just have to be with it long enough to actually hear what it's asking of us. And so really giving rise to the intuition, the nurturing, the creative, the collaborative, caring parts of us. And that might mean that you start with yourself, right? And we are so good at doing that for other people, but we might not be very good at doing that for ourselves. And I will say that this might look different for everyone. And I'm not saying that you have to be married, or you have to have children, or you have to be working in a company, or you need to have your own business. This means different for everyone. Creative doesn't mean you know, a woman is creative. Some women exercise that creativity by giving birth and having, you know, a beautiful home, and that is their archetype. And other women actually exercise their creativity by, you know, the projects that take on at work or starting their own business, and that is their archetype. So you really do have to understand, what is my true nature, and how can I exercise all of these within my personal archetype and my personal sort of way of being. How can I actually be ambitious but not feel like I have to go to work? And maybe I don't want to work. Maybe that is not part of my archetype. But ambitious could mean just that you're doing different projects within your home and within your apartment, or, you know, and so it really is defining these things according to your personal essence and not according to what is the first image that shows up when you think ambition. We all think work. It's not like that. When we think creative, we all think, okay, we need to be the mother nature. And nurturing, we think it has to be a child. No, it can be your coworkers. It can be your partner. It can be yourself. It can be a project. You nurture something. So redefine some of these things according to your own definition. So the journey back home, what should you be doing, right? I think it's an important thing for us to think about. And I would say connect to your body and to your nature. Everything you need, and I know it sounds super cliche as I say this, but everything you need exists inside of you. You do not need anything outside of you at this point. We all have information overload. We just need to reconnect with our body's wisdom. And nature is actually going to help you with that. Nature has a way of grounding us literally. And there's so much science that has now come out, and even after all of the COVID lockdowns, there's a lot of research that came out as to just our need to be in nature. It's humbling, it's awe-inspiring, it is comforting, it is grounding. So being in nature actually will bring you into your body. But being in nature while you're taking a photo, not so much. So make sure that you're actually in nature and in it and be with it. And let it move you, notice it, care for it, let it care for you. I would also say engage in some embodiment practices, body work. This could be breath work, it could be movement or dance or yoga, anything that's going to get you into your body. And this I would say for men also, by the way, like we need to bring it in to the body. You know, Carl Jung wrote a book called I can't remember the name, The Modern Man Search for Soul. Yes. And so basically that we've lost touch with our instinct being intuition. When we're like, oh, what should I do with my child? Or what should I do with this project? Or what should I do with this decision? Listen to yourself. Well, how do I listen to myself? Still yourself and listen to your body. It's sending you sensory signals. And so this is really becoming aware of the sensations. And that is a very vulnerable process, guys. You do have to drop into your body and pay attention to the body's emotions. And if I just say, tell me what your body is feeling, I have a lot of tension in my neck, in my shoulders, my stomach feels a little bit tight. This kind of sensate kind of experience. This is not a theoretical idea of doing connecting with your self-awareness. It's a physical, embodied self-awareness, which allows you to stay present. It allows you to regulate. It allows you to feel whole, find your balance, makes you feel connected. All of us are like, oh my God, I can't believe it's March already. It's because you're not connected in the body so much. You're all in your head and time just seems to be whizzing by. And so being in your body is actually going to help a lot with that. Recently, I started doing all of this, actually, breath work and yoga, and I started taking horse riding. Like that really brings you into the nuances of your body. And so really saying, okay, what else can I do with my body that is going to really make me quite nuanced in the way it feels and in the way it moves. Another thing is going to be to see to your physical needs. This is really, and you see this little heart with, with the hand. It is about doing it with a nurturing energy. Guys, it's not another thing to do with this kind of, oh my God, I gotta have, sleep and I gotta eat and I gotta exercise. No, take that energy out of it and say, hey, I'm going to do this because this is what I do. If this is what I would do if a young child was in my care. I would make sure that it's sleeping properly. I would make sure that they're eating properly. I would make sure that they get enough activity. They are in nature. They get a lot more movement. This is what I would do if I had a young child in my care. You are that young child. You have an inner child that is desperately seeking your attention, and it's showing up in all sorts of bodily symptoms, emotional symptoms, and mental health symptoms. It's saying, pay attention to me. You are not giving me what I need. And so start with these basics. I call it SEE, S-E-E, sleep, eat, exercise, and just start with that. And that actually is going to be a very good start for you to start nurturing yourself. We can talk about maybe version 2.0 of taking care of yourself, but this is just basically the basics. Make sure you manage your blue light exposure, get blue light screen protectors. I have a whole talk on sleep if you haven't seen it on my YouTube channel. It goes into sleep, all sorts of things you can do. It's also on my Instagram highlights, products that I recommend, teas that I drink, supplements that I take in order to just ensure that my body is relaxed so I can move into a deep state of sleep. Eating right. Remember that 90% of the serotonin is produced in your gut. 70% of your immunity is produced in your gut. All sorts of new research coming about microbiomes, and you really need to make sure that you're taking care of your gut. And if you are using a lot of antibacterial, then make sure that you speak to your doctor about prebiotics and probiotics, because those antibacterials kill off all the bacteria in your body, the good one and the bad one. So you can get all kinds of stomach issues, and then you think it's IBS, but it actually could just be that your gut biome is off. And when the gut is off, guess what else is off? We're also feeling completely off. So you are literally what you eat. And then also trying to get some sort of activity. You might not be able to do 75% of your maximum heart rate, but just move at some point. Get a Fitbit, get Whoop, or get something that actually gets you to move and track what you're doing, just so you don't have this sedentary lifestyle. Human beings are not meant to be sitting as much as we are. Connect to your people and build your tribe. We live in Dubai, we live away from our families, we are away from our village. And so you need to build your village where you are. And some people are like, well, I'm only here for 5 years, or I'm only here for 2 years. And no, build your people, build your tribe. And make sure you include men in that tribe. A lot of people have these like go women, and this is not, no man or no woman can do this alone. There's no such thing as a fiercely independent leader. No such thing. I haven't seen it. I work with a lot of leaders and I've not seen one. Not men, not women. And I would say to the women, include the men in your tribe, because this isn't this radical sisterhood or girl power, but rather about interdependence and between men and women, and they can teach us and we can teach them. And there's a lot we can learn from each other. And I think there's a lot we can teach each other. So I think it's really important to construct your board of advisors, make sure that there's some men on there, and leverage it. And then think about whose board you can be on, because the world is short of mentors right now, guys. And attention is the rarest form of generosity that we can give to people these days. And so be generous. Mentor people that are younger than you. Inspire people that are younger than you. And seek support when you need it. This is not about doing it alone. And the research will show that social support is the single greatest predictor of happiness and the biggest mitigator of the effects of stress. You have a buffer, it's almost like you've got people carrying that load with you. You try to do it alone, it's like that girl I showed you earlier with the mental and physical load, it literally will break you. And so find a way to build that village, because this is your nature. We are meant to be collaborative. We are meant to be nurturing. We are meant to be caring also. And then lastly, manage your time and, I have 2 other things. Manage your time and energy. Define your balance and make some hard choices, guys. At some point in your life, you're gonna get to a place between choosing what you love and choosing what you love more. And so you do have to make some very hard decisions, because if I say yes to this, I'm saying no to something else. And what are you saying no to? What can you ring fence and say, nope, absolutely not going to say yes, even though this opportunity looks so amazing, but no, I will not do it because it's going to compromise my health. I've had women come to me and say, everybody tells me I should branch out and start a new business, or, move, build, have a second branch to my business. And I don't want to do it. And I feel so much pressure because I have a successful business to go branch out. And they say, I realize I'm going to be saying no to my kids. It's less time with my kids because I have to nurture that team. I have to nurture the second team. And so how am I going to do that when I'm trying to nurture my children or myself or, you know, my elderly parent or so they do have to make a decision at some point. Find ways to calm and refuel often and every day. This is not about going off to a retreat once a year or this yoga thing or this holiday or, you know, solocation or whatever they're called. This is about every single day doing things that make you happy, drop by drop by drop, and exercising that part of you that gives you life. What gives me life? Question mark. Listen to your body, it will tell you. When was the last time you felt joyful? Maybe it was when you were like making a salad, and okay, cooking something might actually make you joyful. Or it might be when you're in nature. Whatever it is, your body will tell you what it is. Find ways to do that often and every day, drop by drop. I buy flowers every week for myself. These are mine. I bought them for myself. I do it. People think they're fake, but they're real, actually. I actually drink lemon water every single day. Like, these are small things you do. I have, you know, aromatherapy that I do. I have nice candles that I buy for myself. These are small things, again, that you can do. Declutter and simplify your life, guys. Not everybody deserves your time. Not everybody needs your time. This is about you saying, what is the most important thing to me and where am I going to invest my energy and time? And then lastly, cultivate tender and fierce self-compassion. I got this from Kristen Neff's self-compassion website, and I really loved this because this is absolutely where the masculine and feminine meet. You've got to soothe and comfort yourself and also protect yourself. Choose to challenge, protect yourself, fight for yourself, fight for your mental health, fight for your well-being. That's the masculine energy. Soothing and comforting yourself is going to be your feminine. Know that you're not alone, because self-compassion really is about, we're all in it. We're all in it together, men, women, all of us, our children, and generations even beyond us probably will be experiencing these things. You are not alone. And saying that I will not let shame guide me or charge, they will not be in charge. I'm in charge. That's the masculine energy. Telling yourself lovingly and with compassion that you're not alone. That's the feminine energy. Experience with and validate your pain in an open and accepting way. Now, this is where you can bring your power to your pain and say, I'm with you and you are not alone. So this is what we have to cultivate, that it's not just about sitting there and saying, oh, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. No, we're going to do something about this, or I'm going to learn something from this. These are the nuances of the feminine and the masculine. I'd be very happy at this point to take some questions from you guys. And then lastly, I want to end with a quote that says, taking care of yourself doesn't mean me first. It means me too. And I think a lot of women experience a lot of guilt when they take time away from their kids or their partners or their work and they take care of themselves, but it's not, it's never going to be that we're taking care of ourselves only. It's just, we're going to take care of ourselves too. And that's the essence of the fierce and tender self-compassion. Thank you, guys. And so these are some of, for people who have to drop off, if I didn't answer your question and you have to log off now, you can message me. Here it is on my Instagram. I'd be very happy to answer. These are all of our different Instagram channels: at Lighthouse Arabia, at Dr. Saleha Afridi, at Lighthearted Parenting is for parents, as well as Smart Heart Board Game is for parents. So if you guys are parents, you guys can go ahead and follow these two accounts. And then for young adults, we have TikTok, as well as the Instagram account, Lighthouse Insight, where we really are targeting more college-aged high school kids and the issues that they sort of struggle with. So I can now take some questions. I'm opening the Q&A box. Oh, sorry. I keep that screen. Oh, I don't know. It's not working. Sorry, guys. Give me 1 second. Hold on. Maybe if I stop share. Oh, there it is. Okay. So let's see. The question is, let me just start from the bottom up. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. So there's a lot of things. So thank you guys. I'm really glad that you enjoyed this talk. So I'm just going to read the questions. So when one's choices are informed by childhood trauma and adult trauma, patriarchal mindsets, how does one trust oneself to make the best choice for oneself and their children? And I think that's a great question. And I think that really has to do with you healing those parts of you. Parenting is an inside job. I know this for a fact. Happiness is an inside job. I know this for a fact. Success is an inside job. I know this for a fact. Like, I've gone through all of it. I've literally, my personal story has been this heroine's journey, precisely, with burnout and all sorts of other things that happened along the way. But it really does go back to you saying, I now take full responsibility for the adult in me that is now going to take care of the child in me and heal those parts in me and make these adult choices based off of, taking personal authority and personal responsibility. So this is what growing up actually looks like as a woman. It says, I will now take ownership of my well-being, because the message that the woman gets, that there's always going to be someone that's going to come care for you. There's always going to be someone that you're going to be dependent on, whether it was your father, your husband, your brother, your work, your God, your whoever, there's always someone that you should just wait for to come and take care of you, the knight in shining armor that will show up. And these are the subtle ways we get this message. But no one's coming. No one's going to come and save the day. You have got to do the healing, and you have got to take the inner journey. And that inner journey is what the last part of the talk was about, which really is to start connecting with your physical body and first start just taking care of your physical needs. Like, these are just some basic things you're going to need to do, because that is a whole other quest. It just looks like 1, 2, 3 on the little chart there, but healing our wounds is a journey, guys. It's not easy, and sometimes a lifetime journey, but you will come to a place as you are on that journey where you feel mostly good. You feel mostly, it's like a upward spiral. So each time I move up the staircase, every 5-7 years, I'm going to be encountering, oh, this is what happened with my mother, or this is what happened with my teachers, or this is what happened with my coach. Like, these are things that we're going to keep encountering, but it's just going to feel different. There's going to be a different lesson that shows up. So that's how you do it. You go inwards and you work on healing. This is really an inner journey. And by journey, I mean the second half of life really is all about that inner journey. Let's see. How does one accept and make peace with the past and the current situation, and heal knowing all the past won't be resolved, but just to make peace with it? This is a tough question. I don't want to assume I know what happened in your past, but for me, I think it really is the lens with which you look. When I think about the things that have happened to me in my past, the small t traumas, I actually feel that was part of the journey. It was supposed to happen that way. It triggered something inside of me that led me on a journey to do something, to whether it was to compensate. Once I compensated, I realized I was tough enough as a man. And then I realized, wait a minute, I'm not a man, I'm a woman. Like, this really is. So each step of the journey and each thing that was sort of given to you it was for your development in some way. The message we just don't know yet. And so really, when you work on healing and looking at it with a lens of, what were you here to teach me? What were you here to give me from this experience? And even the capital T traumas, which I can say that I've actually had to process, I would say it triggered the warrior in me, the fighter in me, the part in me where we feel abandoned. That actually activates another part of us that says, you know what, no one's going to come save me. So we toughen up our skin and we just say, I'm going to do this on my own. That ego served you. It's just no longer serving you. So we don't want to get rid of it. We just want to say, hey, listen, man, I don't need you anymore, but you can give me your thoughts, but I don't need that anymore. So each part of the journey is an extremely important part of the journey. It's just that those adaptive skills that we developed, whether it was fight or flight or fawn or freeze or whatever, manipulation or our ego or our sabotaging our relationships, these were all skills we learned, adaptive measures to cope with our life tasks that were too big for us. It's just not working anymore because you need a different task. It's like you need a version 3.0. You're working on operating model 1.0. It's just going to like not work with the system. So it's just about updating that system and not necessarily putting one part of your life down versus the other. So let's see. I'm reading some more questions here. Great question. The question is, knowing you've reached your burnout phase, and how do you handle it when you get reactions from other people because you consistently sort of get pulled back into that people-pleasing person. So you know you have to do the healing, but you get pulled back into that people-pleasing. And this is the task of the lifetime, actually, to draw those boundaries, to speak up for your truth. This is where you access the masculine energy in you and you say, this is what I need right now, and this is what I'm going to do. And so drawing those boundaries with love and kindness and generosity and firmness is going to be very important. So you can sense that something is not right, but now you need to speak up and fight for yourself. And so you need to fight the outside world, people pleasing, but you need to fight the inside world. And going back to, where did you learn to be a people pleaser? And what would happen if you were not a people pleaser? And if you were just a person that loved, but also tended to herself? And so who would you be if you were not people pleasing? You would still be a people person. It's just that you would not be betraying yourself in the process of that. And so when you people please, what are you betraying? That's the question. And I get really sad when I think about this, when we think about women and how we are taught to please people at the expense of our own needs. And that is betrayal of the greatest kind. And we all think about betrayal, but we don't think about self-betrayal. And that's the biggest betrayal. And when I realized that I was betraying myself by judging my body harshly or judging myself harshly, it was like, oh my God, that was a grief that I could not almost tolerate, because I can tolerate betrayal from other people. I've learned in life teaches you that. But what about when the one person that is supposed to be looking out for you was the one person that betrayed you? That's a tough pill to swallow. So if you are a people-pleasing person, then I would say we need to go back and heal those wounds so you can just be a person who pleases people, but pleases herself, who knows herself, who draws her boundaries, who knows her limits, because that's also another thing that we don't know. We don't know. We realize that we don't realize that we are finite. I remember when I realized that I was going to die, like I realized that, wait, I'm not bionic. I'm actually a human. And I know it sounds a little bit weird, but like when you really are just caught up in this ambition and these goals and this, doing and the doing, you forget that there's a being here that needs attention and that there's finite time here on this earth. And that you are limited in your energy and you are limited in your time. So choose the way you spend your time, choose who you're going to love, choose the books you're going to read. That is, that's the reality of things. Because I think some of us actually, there's a quote, and I don't think Buddha said it, but, the problem is that we think we have time. And that's the problem. We think that, okay, I'll deal with it tomorrow or tomorrow or tomorrow or tomorrow. And then time passes and time passes and there's never a tomorrow. So figure out what's getting in the way of you doing the things you want to do. Let's see. So how do you know you're in 7 or 8 of the heroine's journey? Let me pull back the slides. So 7 and 8 is the descent, I think. So 7 or 8, you know, because you're in a very dark place. You could be yearning for something and being in your dark night at the same time. So it's basically the same feeling. The way I've experienced it is the same feeling, but it is a time of a great depression or time of great mental sort of distress, a time of great sadness, a time of where you might be numbing using social media or Netflix or drugs or alcohol or shisha or this one or that one. Like you're finding a way to give yourself that high or to feel alive, but there's a death, there's something dying. And that's literally the force that is pulling you down, saying, nope, you need to work on this. This is not how you're going to operate. This cannot be the operating model for the second half of your life. And when I say second half of your life, I don't mean like a 50-50, like you're 40 and then you die at 80. I'm talking about the stage, the first adulthood versus the second adulthood. And the first adulthood is where we are going down what society told us to do. We go down all the different expectations and the internal barriers and the external barriers and, okay, let me check this off and let me do this, or get married and okay, have kids and okay, tuck, 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 done. And we go down the checklist, everything done. And we're still not happy. And so it's like, oh, now what? That's when the dark night begins. And that's when the second adulthood begins, where you say, wait a minute, but I never wanted kids. I just did it because that's what everyone told me to do. Everybody keeps asking me as soon as I get married, when you having kids, when you having kids? And oh, wait a minute, I never wanted to get married. Oh, because everyone keeps asking me, when are you going to get married? You know, you're getting older. Like these are the messages that we get, right? And so you start to question. And a lot of times people will make some really big decisions at this point. Don't make any decisions. Hold the tension. Hold. Because it doesn't mean you have to get a divorce or, you know, give your kids up for adoption. It actually means that you need to work through the wounds that led you to that place. Because if you get a divorce or give your kids up for adoption or, you know, run away from home or whatever it is that you think you didn't want or you didn't decide, that wound is going to bring something else up in your life. It isn't about changing your external world, guys. It's really about changing your internal dynamics, internal wounds, internal healing for women. And that is really quite a wounded place, I would say, for all of us. So let's see. So some part of female equality means equality or shared responsibilities at home to allow us to have a chance. I believe most men have not been brought up to allow for this to happen easily. How can we influence this now? I think this is a conversation you have to have with your partner. I mean, there's no other way for me to say it. You have two ways you can change that. One, to start talking about it and to say, how can we share some of this? Because we share our expenses. Can we share some of this also? And the second thing is to teach your sons and your daughters that this is how a house is run. This is what it means to support each other. It is not that you don't get in the way, because for a long time, I believed support was actually people who just didn't get in my way. I can do it all. I can do it. I can have the kids. I can clean the house. I can do all of it. Just don't get in my way. Don't stop me. And I thought that was support. But then I realized that true support is actually saying, hey, Sal, you don't have to do this. I got this today. You go do that. Or, you know, it's been a really long week. How about you take 3 hours to go to the gym or go to the beach? I don't spend 3 hours in the gym. Go to the beach and I'll take the kids out for breakfast. It's that. And I was like, whoa. well, I didn't know that. Like, I didn't know people did that. I didn't see that growing up in my house. And so for me, the definition of support changed only because, you know, I experienced it that way. So it needs a conversation, and it needs a new parenting paradigm, I would say, when it comes to our children. Yes. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Yeah, so a lot of people are asking about different talks. So I have a lot of talks that I've done like this on my YouTube channel, and I make videos that are not so long on my Instagram channel. So you guys can find more information, because somebody said, tell me about self-care, eating right, sleeping, and all of these other working from home topic was mentioned, and I've done a talk on that. How do I change my habits? How do I know I'm depressed? These are all talks that I would say that are on my YouTube or my Instagram, or on the Lighthouse Arabia different Instagram. So yeah, I think that's it. I don't have any other questions. If I didn't get your question, guys, because there's a lot of thank yous on here, so if I missed your questions, please feel free to message me on my Instagram direct message. I'm pretty good about that. And yeah, and I would just like to end with, the note that don't try to get rid of the pain. I know that doing mode is not it. That's not going to solve it. Be with it. Speak to it. Nurture it. Go to it. Feel it. Use your feminine forces and do something with that wound other than fixing it and moving on with it. That's not it, guys. The pain is where the light enters, truly. So use that pain point as the entry point to your healing journey, and you will heal. But if you keep numbing the pain, or you keep doing something about the pain, or if you keep going around the pain, or if you keep trying to heal the pain, it's not. Go be with the pain, and as if you would with a wounded child. You wouldn't rush it out of its pain. You would just be with it. And so it's really about spending time with yourself more. Don't read anything. Don't write anything. Don't do anything. Just be. And so that truly is the feminine nature. So this year's Women's Day is about choosing to challenge. And I would say the most important thing that we can choose to challenge is our own internal models, paradigms, decisions, expectations, barriers internally. We definitely keep doing what we're doing on the outside. We continue to do that, but don't leave that internal bit out. And because I think that actually, if we do, again, I think even moving forward is an inside job. If we heal this, all the other things start to heal too. And I think men are a very important part of this formula. So thank you guys for being here. And really, for me, this is such an important topic. It has been a journey for me on my whole life. I've never talked about this topic without crying. This is a good thing that I didn't, but really for me, it is a very, very emotional topic, a very personal topic. And so I wish you all the best as you choose to challenge and as you go on your inner journey. Thanks, guys. Bye.